Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello everyone, we are group 3 and in this video we are going to explain the content of article 6 entitled Pragmatic Analysis of Verbal Attack in Indonesian Courtroom, Exploring Prevalence, Nature and Cultural Influences by Syafitri Purnama. And before we will explain our material, we would like to introduce our group members. Starting from me, I'm Raisa Azhari.
I am Jesica Imelda Pasaribu.
Guciano.
Okay, without further ado, let's dive into the material. Okay, first, the background of the article. Verbal attacks are a complex form of communication within legal setting which characterized by confrontations. In Indonesian courtroom, communication is influenced by cultural norms. However, verbal attacks in this context have rarely been analyzed using pragmatics. Therefore, this study examines verbal attacks in Indonesian courtroom through speech acts and Grace's maxim to explain how language is used for confrontation and persuasions. Next, to the hook and problem space of the article. Courtroom communication is often assumed to be factual and natural. However, many courtroom interactions involve verbal attacks that are strategic and implicit rather than openly aggressive. And previous studies have provided valuable insight into verbal attacks in legal settings, but there is lack of research focusing on pragmatics of verbal attack in Indonesian courtroom indicates a clearly need for further studies that consider the specific linguistic and cultural factors shaping legal communication in Indonesia. Next to the aim and research questions. So, this study aims to examine verbal confrontation in Indonesian courtroom by analyzing how verbal attacks unfold within the linguistic context of legal proceedings by investigating intentional violence of Grace's maxims as strategic features of confrontation language. There are two research questions in this article. The first one is how verbal attack unfold within the specific linguistic context of Indonesian legal proceedings, and the second one is to what extent legal professionals deliberately go against Grace's maxims in the strategic use of language during verbal attacks within Indonesian legal settings. This article used three key concept theoretical framework. The first one is speech act to categorize the type of verbal attacks used in the court transcript, and the second illocutionary force, which means the speaker's intention behind an utterance, and the third one is Grace's cooperative principle, especially the maxim of quality, quantity, and manner, and it identifies how violations shape the confrontational and strategic nature of verbal attacks. For the method, this study uses a qualitative research design and consists 5 Indonesian courtroom transcripts collected from open and ethical process, and this research applied purposive sampling, which means only transcripts that contain clear verbal attacks were selected, and for the analysis, the researchers categorized speech acts, identified the illocutionary force, and examined intentional violence of Grace's maxims.
Okay, so for the finding, I will explain. The first one is the speech act categorization analysis. So in here, as you can see, the table 1 shows the types of verbal attacks found in the transcript, including their speech act categories, illocutionary force, and intentional violation of these maxims. In here, the table presents 10 types of verbal attacks identified from the courtroom transcripts. Each type is analyzed based on four main elements. The first one is the speech act category, the level of illocutionary force, whether Greece maxims are violated, and the last, the frequency of occurrence across transcript. So the first one, there is direct challenge. verbal attack found in the data, which belongs to the category of assertion and carries a high illocutionary force. Direct challenge occurred 9 times across 5 transcripts, and they consistently involve violation of Greece maxims. So from this, it is it indicates that legal professionals often use verbal attacks to question credibility or reject opposing claim. Next is veiled accusation. Rather than direct statements. It has a high illocutionary force, but it still violates Greece maxim. The failed acquisitions occur 8 times across 5 transcripts, that showing lawyers prefer indirect strategies that allow them to imply suspicion or bias without making explicit acquisition. Next, the, the third one is interruptive assertion. Interruptive assertion is categorized as interruption and has a high illocutionary force, but it does not violate the Greece maxims. In here, it appears 7 times across 4 transcripts. Next, there is explicit confrontation. Explicit confrontation carries the highest illocutionary force among all categories and involves maxim violations. This type occurs 7 times in 3 transcripts, and its forceful nature makes it one of the most aggressive forms of verbal attack in courtroom discourse. Next, there is indirect critique. Indirect critique is another common strategy, appearing 6 times across 3 transcripts. It is categorized as a critique, has a moderate illocutionary force, and involves maxim violations. This type of verbal attack reflects a polite yet confrontational strategy shaped by courtroom norms and cultural expectation. Next, there is sarcastic remark. In here, the sarcastic remarks have a low illocutionary force, but still involve violation of these maxims. They appear 5 times in 3 transcripts. Next, there is dismiss utterance. Dismiss utterance appear 5 times in 2 transcripts and carry a moderate illocutionary force, and it also involves the maxim violations. Next, there is counter-argument. Counter-arguments involve high allocutionary force, but do not violate Gross maxims. In here, they appear 4 times across 2 transcripts. Next, there is mocking expression. Mocking expressions are relatively rare, appearing only twice in 1 transcript, but they do involve maxim violations. The last one is assertive rebuttal. Finally, the assertive rebuttal occurs 2 times in 1 transcript, and it does not violate Gross maxims. So overall, the table shows that verbal attacks in Indonesian courtrooms vary in form, force, and pragmatic strategy. These findings strongly support the article's central claim that verbal attacks are strategic, intentional, and pragmatically motivated. Next, this is the Gross maxim violation analysis. In here, the following table 2 presents selected courtroom scenarios from transcript 1 to transcript 5. The table classifies the speech acts used and identifies cases where Gross maxims are deliberately violated. The data illustrate a range of strategies employed by legal professionals, including explicit confrontation, indirect critique, veiled accusation, and sarcastic remark. The first one is veiled accusation. One common pattern found in the data is veiled accusation, which violates the maxim of quality through implied motives rather than direct claims. As you can see in the example, Considering your recent interactions with the defendant, could there be an ulterior motive behind your testimony? Menimbang interaksi terkini Anda dengan pihak terdakwa, mungkinkah ada motif tersembunyi di balik kesaksian Anda? So, in this utterance, the speaker does not provide evidence, but suggests dishonesty through implication. So, this violates the maxim of quality because the accusation is implied rather than proven, allowing the speaker to attack the witness credibility indirectly. The second one, this is another example of veiled accusation. Another form of veiled accusation also targets bias instead of motive. So, as in the example, given your close ties with the opposing party, is your perspective truly unbiased? Could there be an undisclosed agenda? Dengan keterikatan erat Anda dengan kejaksaan, apakah pandangan Anda benar-benar netral? Mungkinkah ada agenda yang tidak diungkapkan? So in here, the speaker, again, does not assert a factual claim, but frames suspicion through questioning. And this shows a deliberate violation of the maximum quality, as the speaker implies bias without stating it explicitly. Next, the third one, also another example of veiled accusation. As you can see in the example, considering the close relationship between the witness and the opposing party, one wonders if there's a hidden agenda in play. Menimbang hubungan dekat antara saksi dan pihak lawan, seseorang mungkin bertanya-tanya apakah ada agenda tersembunyi yang sedang bermain. So from this example, it allows the speaker to claim doubt while avoiding direct responsibility for the accusation. Such use of implicature demonstrates how verbal attacks are softened linguistically but strengthened pragmatically. Next, explicit confrontation. Unlike veiled accusation, explicit confrontation is direct and aggressive. As you can see in the example, this assertion is absurd. There's no basis for such a claim, and it's a clear attempt to mislead the court. Pernyataan ini tidak masuk akal. Tidak ada dasar untuk klaim seperti itu, dan ini jelas merupakan upaya untuk menyesatkan pengadilan. So in here, the violation occurs in the maxim of manner, as the speaker uses emphatic and emotionally charged language rather than natural explanation. The assertive tone intensifies the verbal attack. Next, also another example of explicit confrontation. As you can see in the example, Your Honor, the claim put forth by the opposing counsel is fundamentally flawed and lacks any substantial basis. The evidence presented is deliberately misleading. Hormat, klaim yang diajukan oleh kuasa hukum lawan secara mendasar tidak masuk akal dan tidak memiliki dasar substansial. Bukti yang disajikan dengan sengaja menyesatkan. So, this utterance violates the first maxim of manner due to strong confrontational wording. The second one, maxim of quality, because it asserts intentional deception without proof presented at the moment. This dual violation strengthens the persuasive force of the attack. Next, indirect critique. Indirect critique violates the maxim of quantity by withholding clarity. As you can see in the example, could there be other factors influencing the witness recollections that haven't been disclosed? Mungkin ada faktor lain yang memengaruhi ingatan saksi yang belum diungkapkan. So in here, the speaker provides less information than required, forcing the audience to infer doubt, and this is a strategic use of ambiguity. Next, another example of indirect critique. As you can see in the example, can you confirm whether any considerations from party Y may have influenced your recent testimony? Bisakah Anda mengonfirmasi apakah pertimbangan dari pihak Y mungkin telah memengaruhi kesaksian terkini Anda? Although framed politely, the question in here introduces unnecessary suspicion. It is violating the maxim of quantity by adding implication beyond what is required. Next, another explicit confrontation. One clear form of verbal attack found in the data is explicit confrontation, which violates the maxim of manner through strong and direct assertiveness. As you can see in the example, Your Honor, the evidence presented by the opposing counsel lacks credibility and is a clear attempt to mislead this court. Hormat, bukti yang disajikan oleh kuasa hukum lawan kurang kredibel dan jelas merupakan upaya untuk menyesatkan pengadilan ini. So in this utterance, the speaker openly attacks the credibility of the opposing party's evidence. Rather than explaining the weakness of the evidence in a natural way, the speaker uses evaluative and confrontational language. This violates the maxim of manner because the statement prioritizes rhetorical force over cooperative clarity, making the confrontation more persuasive but less dialogic. Next, also another explicit confrontation. Another form of explicit confrontation appears through extreme assertiveness, which also violates the maxim of manner. As you can see in the example, this is preposterous. The witness account is a blatant distortion of facts, and it's absurd to entertain such baseless claims. Ini tidak masuk akal. Kesaksian saksi merupakan distorsi fakta yang nyata, dan ini adalah hal yang tidak masuk akal untuk membahas klaim yang tanpa dasar ini. So in here, the speaker employs emotionally charged expressions to reject the witness testimony. The utterance goes beyond logical argumentation and uses strong evaluative language to amplify the attack. This represents a violation of the maxim of manner, as emotional force and intensity replace calm and structured explanation, increasing the rhetorical impact of the verbal attack. And the last one, there is sarcastic remark. Sarcastic remark is another verbal attack strategy that violates Greece maxims, particularly through exaggeration. As you can see the example, given your incredible track record with Party X, can we all rest assured that your current stance is completely unbiased? Dengan rekam jejak Anda yang luar biasa dengan pihak X, bisakah kita semua yakin bahwa sikap Anda saat ini benar-benar netral? So in this example, the speaker uses exaggerated praise to convey an ironic meaning. The surface level compliment contrasts with the implied criticism directed at the witness. So this violates the maxim of quantity as the exaggeration introduces more meaning than necessary and leads the audience to infer sarcasm, allowing the speaker to question neutrality indirectly. Next. Okay, next slide is speech act categorization and Greece maxim violation. Classifying speech acts according to their type and illocutionary force helps explain how participants strategically manage confrontational language in legal settings. The analysis identifies recurring patterns in how speech acts are used, revealing the rhetorical decisions made during verbal confrontations. By examining different levels of assertiveness and indirectness, the study highlights the complexity of linguistic strategies employed by legal professionals to achieve their legal goals. So in here, this is the relationship between the speech act categorization and Grace maxim violation. For further explanation, will be explained by Zico.
Okay, thank you, Jessica. Hello, everyone. And next slide is the example of the speech categorization and Grace maxim violations. And for the example, okay, everyone. And example one is a direct challenge. As you can see, is in the picture. The picture is the argument between prosecutor, judges, and defendant. In example one, a direct challenge unfolds as the prosecutor questions the validity of the defendant claims. The prosecutor asserts that the presented evidence does not accurately reflect the true fact of the case and suggests a deliberate attempt by the defendant to divert attention from the weakness in their argument. In this instance, the speaker strategically chooses a confrontational approach, deliberately violating Grace maxim to assert their position forcefully within the legal discourse. Next is example 2. Okay, in example 2 is a valid acquisition. All five transcript I will explain also have the valid acquisition in acquisition. In a transcript, it uses to cast a subtle shadow over witness testimony. And you can see in as you can see, guys, in picture example 2, it's between defendant witness. In example 2, the defendant advocate can skillfully navigate the proceeding, beginning with questions that appear harmless and focus on the witness connection to the whistleblower. The advocate gradually introduced an undercurrent of doubt. Although the witness denies gaining any benefit of or special treatment, the advocate continues to press, crafting an implicature that hints at possible improper influence shaping the witness testimony. This creates valid acquisition where suspicious is implied without direct acquisition. Next is example 3. Okay, in example 3 is explicit confrontation. In another transcript, a defendant orchestrated and compelling explicit confrontation, significantly shaping the discourse. And in example 3, exemplifies the category of explicit confrontation, where the prosecutor strategically deploys clear and direct language to express dissatisfaction with the opposing party assertion. The deliberate and forceful language used by the prosecutor served not only to question the opposing party's credibility, but also strategically maneuver within the constraint of the courtroom environment. The explicit confrontation unfolds as a calculated and impactful strategy within the legal discourse, shedding light on the nuanced ways in which advocates navigate confrontation to advocate for their position. Next example. Okay, next example is example 5 and example 4 and example 5. This example is our indirect critique. The next category is an indirect critique. One of the example is example 4, is when the prosecutor tactically executes a strategically casting doubt on the witness reliability Without explicit acquisition, the prosecutor navigates the questioning with fitness as follows. Seperti as you can see in example 4, seperti bisakah Anda mengklarifikasi apakah ada pertimbangan dari pihak terdakwa mungkin telah mempengaruhi kesaksian Anda baru-baru ini? And in example 5, the witness vehemently denies any undue influence. It was the defendant who was underrated and persisted. As you can see in example 5, tapi mungkinkah hubungan dekat Anda dengan kejaksaan secara tidak sengaja membentuk perspektif Anda itu? These specific examples epitomize the indirect critique category, as the defendant subtly insinuates doubt about the witness impartially without directly challenging his or her credibility. The intentional breach of Grace maxims is an evident, showcasing defendant's skillful use of nuanced language to strategically question the integrity of the witness statement. Next slide. Okay, in the slide is violation of Grace maxim. The first file acquisition of quality. In this strategy, the lawyer hints at something that has not been proven by implying an ulterior motive behind a witness testimony. The speaker questions credibility without presenting concrete evidence, resulting in a violation of maxim of quality. For example, could there be an ulterior motive behind your testimony? Is mean implied motive. The second is explicit confrontation, manner, or assertive. This type marked by strong assertive language that directly challenge the opponent claims. Excessive bluntness and emotional force replace cooperative clarity, leading to a violation of the maximum of manner. The example is, this exertion is absurd. And the third is indirect critique, quantity, implicit details. Here, the lawyer deliberately requires unnecessary or additional details to suggest that important information is missing. The question implies incompleteness rather than asserting it directly, violating of the maxim of quantity. Example is, could there be other factor influencing the witness recollection that have not been disclosed? It means implicit details. The fourth is sarcastic remark, quantity exaggeration. The sarcastic remarks rely on exaggeration to communicate criticism indirectly by adding excessive or ironic details. The speaker convey doubt and skepticism, thus violating of maxim of quantity. And the example is, given your incredible track record with the party X, exaggeration. Next slide. Okay, for this slide is summary of key finding. The first is, the finding provide list and explanation of types of speech, act, and deliberate violation of Grace maxims used by attorney to assert opposition, challenge assertion, and cast doubt on opponent. This finding indicate that the lawyer used particular speech act, such as direct challenge, failed acquisition, explicit confrontations, and indirect critiques as strategic tools in courtroom interaction by intentionally violating Grace maxims, especially the maxim of quality, quantity, and manner. Speakers able to suggest bias, imply hidden intention, exaggerate meaning, or display aggression without directly making accusation. And second is the key finding provide show that core communication is strategic. Courtroom communication is not merely an exchange of information, but a carefully constructed interaction where language is used as a persuasive tools. Lawyers adapt their language choices based on the situational goals, power relations, and the needs to protect professional decorum while still attacking the opposing side's credibility. And the last is the intentional deviation from cooperative norm offer deeper understanding of legal interaction. This intentional deviation from Greece cooperative principle reveals how legal actors manipulate conversational norms to achieve rhetorical impact by violating maxim in a controlled manner. Attorney able to perform verbal attacks, influence interpretation, and maintain institutional authority. This provides deeper insight into the how pragmatic function within legal discourse, particularly in adversarial courtroom setting. That's all for me. And next is will be explained by my friend.
Okay. This is the implication. So, the finding of this article provide a deeper understanding of pragmatic dimension of courtroom communication in Indonesia. The insight in this study offer practical implication. The first one, in understanding how and when the use or avoid certain strategies can lead to more effective courtroom advocacy. Next, attorneys and legal practitioners can use this insight to improve their communication skill in courtroom. Next, for the recommendation for future study, this study focuses on explicit confrontations, indirect critiques, veiled accusations, and certain violation of Greece maxims. So for the future study, the research could, the first one, analyze less frequent speech act type. Next, explore different legal contexts or type cases across region within Indonesia. Next, examining largest data, and the last one, conduct interviews with judges, lawyers, and witnesses. So this is the future study. Next, the conclusion. The study explore linguistic strategies in Indonesia courtroom, focuses on confrontational dynamic and indirect critics and veiled accusations and violating of Greece maxims of legal discourse. The finding answers research question and objectives and give a deep understanding of how language is used strategically in courtroom confrontations. Thank you. So that's all from me.
Okay, thank you, Zico and Jessica. So that's all about our material, and uh, for people who watch this, we have provide two questions, and we hope you guys answer it in your summary of our material. Okay, I think that's all about our material and our explanations. Thank you for pay attention to us to our video. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.